Hi folks, today we welcome onto the Scotch Tacker YouTube channel veteran Star Trek visual effects supervisor and coordinator Ronald B. We also have the pleasure of featuring Maria co-hosting today. Thanks so much for coming on to the show, Ronald.
Glad to be here.
Yes.
I wondered if we could begin by asking what are your earliest memories of Star Trek and how did you get started working on it?
I was in the Navy back in the 1960s, and we had done a cruise on the submarine Navy on a submarine tender in Spain. And when we came back to the States, I bought a little TV set, probably an 8-inch, little tiny thing you'd carry around. I remember walking up to the bridge when we were in port in Charleston and taking this TV set. I'd sit in the captain's chair on the bridge, and there was a little table there by the windows, and I'd set the TV up there, pull up the ears, plug it in, and that was the first place I saw Star Trek. And black and white, of course, and it was just interesting to see it. And that was just, it was a show I enjoyed, and so when I got out of the Navy, of course, it was still on, and I'd watch it there. Years later, I going into photo school, and I'd left San Bernardino, a town in California, drove to Santa Barbara where the school was. And in between there is Hollywood. And I remember driving down Melrose and parking my car at Melrose and Gower. And that's the Paramount Studios. And on the side of the building is a poster. And it was for Star Trek, the original series. And I got out of my car, took my camera, and I took a picture of that sign there, and they had just canceled it. And I just remember thinking, this is what I want to do. And I so wish that I could have worked on that show. But obviously it was too late. It's gone now. So it just shows you how life can really throw you a curve. Suddenly, years later, I spent 18 years working on it. Yeah, at that same corner. Where that poster was, my office was on the other side of the wall many years later.
Wow. So, I mean, what's the luck of that happening?
I know. I just, you don't believe it.
All right.
You really don't. And it was interesting because when I finally got the chance, I'd been working in it for a long time. I used to put the pictures in the portholes for the Love Boat TV series. Worked on my first movie was like the Muppet movie and Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, a real heavy duty movie. Anyway, I'd worked on a lot of different things. I'd worked with Michael Jackson a couple of times on some videos, and I was getting started on what was a movie. I can't think of the name of it right now. Old. Anyway, it just didn't work out at the time for some other reason. It's about ready to get started with this project. And I really was disappointed that it wasn't going to work out. This was on a Friday. And so I went home all depressed. Oh my God, I really wanted to work on that movie. Anyway, the next morning I got the call and asked me if I'd be interested in coming over and talking to them about Star Trek. And the next day, on a Sunday, I was working on Star Trek. So again,
wow.
You get a curveball, but they were just working on Farpoint and just getting it started. And at that point, ILM had started working on some of the ship shots for that series. And when they sent down all of the paperwork that went with it, because we were going to do the compositing, it was kind of Greek to the guys working on it. Star Trek was unusual in that we were one of the first shows to switch to video post-production as opposed to doing everything on film. And so when ILM sent stuff down, it was all in the form of how we would handle it with film. And the guys that I was working with, since they were more electronic, they wanted some help and try to interpret this. Well, that's what I'd been doing. I just got off Ghostbusters and Big Trouble, Little China, something new, and that's how we worked.
That's a fun movie.
Yes, it is. And it was very interesting because when I walked in, it was, of course, this is what I've been doing. So I started interpreting that, and it grew into much more. It was a thrill. Plus, it's Star Trek. It's
Right.
But oh my God, I was working 7 days a week. I mean, we were so far behind, and the days were just crazy. And I thought when I got out of the films that was going to cut back a little bit. I mean, with Ghostbusters, for example, they actually rented a hotel for us across the street from where we worked. They didn't want us to have to spend the time driving. And if you left after 18 hours, you felt guilty for leaving early. And this was every day, 7 days a week, just month after month. And it was very, you get done and you're just beat. You forgot what life is like. Everything in your life is these marshmallow men and stuff. And you're lucky to get out for lunch.
Right. So like on the Ghostbusters, this like talking about Ghostbusters for a second. So you worked on the Marshmallow Man, or was it like the slime creature? Like what exactly did you work on the Ghostbusters?
Well, I was still visual effects, so I worked on both actually.
On both?
A lot of the beams and stuff, But there's a big difference between films and TV in the sense that since movies are so much bigger, there's a lot more people involved, right? So any given shot, one of the first shots I remember when I walked in the first day, the shot I was given was the Marshmallow Man Reveal, which is where it cut to the buildings and you see the marshmallow walking behind it.
I know exactly what you're talking
to my boss and saying, "Look, I'd like to follow this shot until it's finished, just so I can get a feel for the flow and everything. Then you can throw whatever shots you want at me, you do it, but let me finish this one." And they're like, yeah. Well, they knew more than I did. That was ludicrous because that was the first shot I started on, and I think it was the last shot I finished when the movie was done, because they keep changing things.
Right.
And if you look at the shot, I mean, it's just so elaborate. Inside the windows of the buildings, you'd see a pool table, you'd see a kitchen, and they're changing things and putting water towers, and so it takes a long time to get. So, it was an amazing experience. TV, on the other hand, we do 3-4 episodes at a time. I'd walk around with briefcases full of scripts and notes and everything. But since it moves so fast, you have a lot more creativity that you individually can put in. An example would be very early on, the Ferengi ship came up. Now, the rule at that point is warp lights are blue, right? Everybody knows warp lights are blue. Well, one day I was in the bay and I started working with the Ferengi ship and I started to put the blue lights on it. Well, blue, it's just, when I was compositing this stuff, it just looked horrible against the orange of the ship. And you can see that, what I'm talking about, if you look especially the early stuff of the Enterprise, because the deflector dish is kind of orange with a blue light on it. And it just doesn't really look that good. So anyway, I'm fooling around with it, and finally I said, you know what? Screw warp lights being blue, right? Who says this, right?
Right.
So I made them orange. And it matched in, and I was able to blend it in, and it worked, and I shipped it over. Well, it's TV.
Right.
They had to cut it in, and they go. Well, that set a standard, because now you'll see greens for Klingons, and we had latitude then to do whatever we wanted on the ships, what looked good.
Right.
But we wanted to be consistent too, so it wasn't like you're going to have a Ferengi ship with pink lights one week, orange the next, blue the next.
Right, you had to have that consistency. So
but with TV, you could do that. On a movie, there'd be 87 meetings before you'd get that decided, to make them orange.
Wow.
So TV for me was a lot. It was intense the way we worked, but on the other hand, having that much creativity was neat, right? So you get to go on the fly. We did a show once with Data, you probably recall it, where he wanted to be a comedian.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Like,
right? Well,
go ahead.
So he was going to go in, and David Picozzi was going to be the comedian. And we went up, we were doing it, and Data walks up and he hits the holodeck and names start going, and it was going to come up David Pecosty. Well, I'm putting all this stuff together, and I get a call from the office, and they're saying, well, we decided we can't use David Pecosty. We don't want to use his name up there. Let's use something else. That's fine, no problem. Put it down, put my name in.
Because I was going to ask you, was there like a story behind that, like, or was that just kind of a running joke, like on the set or something? Like,
no, they decided to change it. I have no idea why, but they never told me who. So,
congratulations!
Put my name up. Yeah. Well, it was interesting because a few years ago we have a convention here annually in Vegas, and David Pecosty was there. So I walked up to him and said, "You probably don't know this, but you played me in this episode." And he had no idea why they took his name off, because that was my question: is why? Why?
Right.
He had other real names up there. Why not put your name on? He didn't know, but
yeah. Hey, there you go.
I read the one of your initial Star Trek projects was working on Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, and I was wondering what contribution you had to that film.
On which Star Trek?
Star Trek V.
The Final Frontier.
Which one was
the one with William Shatner directing, basically.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah. I'm lost with the number here, and it's an odd one, so you got to be careful.
You're right.
But yeah, we didn't do a whole lot on that. There was a scene where, God, I said the name wrong earlier. It was Joe Piscopo was the name in the holodeck.
Okay.
Pecosty was the guy from the movie you're talking about. The mind plays funny things. You know what I'm saying?
You're right.
David Pecosty was the guy on the planet that was, they were trying to sell land in Star Trek. And that was the first thing we shot on Star Trek V. And we went onto the set, and Bill was directing it. Leonard was there. It was really an interesting. We had this great big blue screen up, and my partner Dan Curry had gone to the fish market and picked up a fish, and then modified it, sticking things into it so it looked very alien. And this guy who was sailing Ling, one of his lines is, "And the fishing is great." And he holds up this alien fish. Anyway, that was the first thing that we shot, and it ended up being all put on monitors.
Oh, okay.
When they're on one of the planets. So while the scene's taking place on the monitors, David Pecosty is trying to sell land on this Nimbus, I think, planet. So
awesome.
On the monitor.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't a lot, but it was always fun. Anytime I worked with the original cast, it was
nice.
Fun.
Awesome.
Being a fan of the original show. That's why Generations, which I did a lot more on than 5, was fun. The opening with the cast was great.
Awesome. Yeah. One question I have is, like, you've mentioned, like, earlier in this interview about how, like, the difference between the movies and, like, the TV show, about, like, the amount of freedom and, like, of that. But, like, I noticed also when I was doing some research last night that you also worked on 2 video games. And I want to know, like, how is that, like, compared to, like, movies and TV? Is there more freedom in, like, working with video games, developing that, or is it more, or what's that experience like?
No, I think it was more like the TV in the sense that for us, we had a freedom. The specifics of the game and how all that was worked was something that had pretty much been worked out. And that the creators of the game then would come into us and try to let us help them with any visuals that they would need. I found it fascinating because I've been around computers for a long time, just to get that idea. So it was the same thing, only different. Okay, all
right,
different people, but it's a lot lower, especially on the set. One of the problems, or one of the things with a TV or movie is, but even more so on TV, is when you're on the set, you're always behind. There's a story about Roger Corman, the director of a lot of the old low budget movies. You know, he made movies for 10 grand. You know, how could you even do this? But he'd show up on the first day and they'd get things set up, they'd get ready, and the first thing out of his mouth would be, "All right, hurry up, we're behind." And that's pretty much TV.
Right. Always behind.
Right. Well, with games and some of the other things, I don't think the costs are quite as high per minute. You know what I'm saying? So you could be a little bit more relaxed, and commercials can be like that too. They make a lot of money for commercials, but you know they can be a little bit more lax. They're not constantly under the gun. You know, and visual effects, especially movie, Star Trek, anything. A lot of the crew sees you as a curse. You know, when you walk onto the set, you know, and, okay, this is an effect shot. Because, you know, we want to go out, we want to say, okay, we're going to shoot it, then we want to take time, we want to measure the camera, how high is it, what directions it's pointing, we want to make little diagrams, where we're focused at. You know, we want all these details. Oh, wait, we got to hang some balls and do this stuff, and then I need to take this shot, and the crew's just sitting there, we've got to move on, you know. Because as a standard, you're working long days on the set. They seem to love it, but I didn't. You know, like, you know, but the crew, they had those long days. But when we came in, we would extend it. So we had this reputation, which also meant that they liked to put us last.
Right. So like with like the special effects, you would like be coming either before the shot or during the shot, after. Like, what was like that process like, or would you like get the footage and then have to, like, you know, do what you need to do, like for whatever the shot was, like how?
Yeah. No, we were involved with it from the script on.
Oh, from the script on.
Yeah, we get a script, and I would break it down, try to do a budget, work with the producer and the director, talk about the director. What is it that you want? And try to pick your battles. You know, here's how much. Then go into the big meeting with the producers, and you know, again, it's for me. I always looked at it that I want to get as much money out of Paramount as I can, and put it into the show, right? So you do a budget because they were in the habit of saying, look, how much is it going to cost me to have this ship do that? You know, it's like, well, you know, it's like me saying, how much is a car?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I need more information. I can't just
exactly.
say, you know? So I'm starting with a Cadillac, and then you talk me down to a Volkswagen, and somewhere in the middle will come up. But then it's my duty to give it to you for whatever you agreed to. Right. That's my responsibility. And if you don't want the Cadillac, but you want the Ford, okay, I'll make you the best Ford I possibly can. And I'll try to do that and not come in over budget. You know, so work with it. Then when you get onto the set, it's our responsibility to watch, make sure the director's doing what he agreed to, and that whatever this thing is, if it's a, you know, whatever kind of a shot, a phaser or whatever, that is shot in such a way that I can put it together and deliver it for the price I said I would. Which is tough, because a lot of times you got to tell a director you can't do that. Now, the best way to tell a director not to do something is say yes. You know.
Really?
I always start with yes, and then, but you know, we could also, and we could do this. Okay, most of the time it works. But sometimes, you know, it would be a bit of a battle, and sometimes they bring the producers, get them involved too, which is fine. You know, I can do it. You know, spend the money, then, you know, I would rather do it. You know? Again, it's my responsibility. So there's a little bit of being a cop there to see that it's done. Most directors will work with you. And that's why if a director comes up and says, look, I really want to do this, but we budgeted this and you're asking me to spend twice that. You know, so will you work with me? If we do this, will you help me out over here so that we can balance it out? We come to a compromise.
It's like a lot of negotiations.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Cool. And again, there's a big difference with movies. You know,
Right.
in movies now, you become the in-between guy. You're between the director. I guess the basic difference is that movies, to me, are a director's meeting. Meaning, when I'm working on a movie, the director's the boss. He's who I'm going to go to. When I'm on TV, it's the producers.
Oh, okay.
Right? If
Right.
I got a big question about money or something, the director can't give me the okay. I need it from the producers. And what that means with the movie, a lot of times visual effects, we become in between. You know, the director, I want to do this, you know, I want to put, 57 different, monsters in the corner. Yeah, but you budgeted 4. I know, but I need 57 because it goes like this, but you said 4. I don't care. I need to make the 57 in order to make the shot work. Right? I know, but I can only afford to put 4 in there, maybe 5, but come on, work with me here.
Right.
No, and he shoots it for 57. Well, now the producers come up, Ron, we didn't agree to this, and this what I'm specifically talking about actually was wolves, and it was in Breaking Dawn. And, the director wanted a lot more wolves than what we had budgeted for. These are all CG, very high-end things. Then the producers would come over and say, we agreed to 4. And he shot this to be 50. I mean, who's paying for this? Boom, boom. But they wouldn't tell him.
Right?
They wouldn't tell the director. They would tell me. And then I go to the director and say, I'm sorry, the producers, we got to do this before we agree to.
Right.
No, it's just, that can be a terror.
It sounds like it.
You just want to get to the point where you two just talk to each other and leave me out of it.
Right.
Just tell me how many you want.
Right.
And go for it.
There's been a few questions posted on Facebook. Bob Fostler asked, did you work closely with Rob Legato?
Yes. Rob was actually first. I would say that probably I was hired on Star Trek because of Rob. And he and my boss, Peter Lawrenson, and a guy named Gary Hutzel, another really good guy in the business, they were doing the show. And they, again, it just got to be so much more than I think anybody had planned. One of the reasons for that was because it was electronic. And Rob had come out of 2 shows that had done video production, Max Headroom and Twilight Zone. There was a Twilight Zone that Rob had done. So he was one of the few of us that had a lot of video experience. And then it's one of the reasons why when ILM sent down this ream of paperwork about the ships that they had shot, that I was useful in it. So when I started, it was the 3 of us. It was Rob, Gary, and myself that were putting things together and getting it rolling. Rob was one of the most creative people I've ever worked with. Funny man, very demanding, but I just love to watch him work from the seat of his pants. Things would start going and just see that guy's head start to go and watch miracles happen. It was just really good. The other person that played into it a lot was Dan Curry, who came on a little bit later. And he and I worked very closely together for most of the rest of my time with Star Trek. But they were just dead opposites. Right? Dan Curry is a drawer, an artist, a fabulous artist. And he would, everything would be storyboarded out, and here's exactly how we're going to do stuff. Whereas I think Rob prided himself in not doing that. Right? His attitude was more like, well, if you start boarding it out and you lay everything out, then that's what they expect you to deliver. Right? I don't want to do that. I want to feel the freedom. And when I get in and I see how it's going together, I want to flow with it. And he was so good at that. That's what I meant by that seat of the thing. I just talked to him a month or so ago, maybe more recent than that. But God, his career is just shot off. He's done some fabulous work. His Lion King, I wasn't a big thrilled with the story. It seemed like you just did it animated. You can call it live action, but to me, it's another animated.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't change it. You know, it's the same story and stuff. But God, visually, what a amazing.
Awesome.
Some other questions we've had on Facebook is like, what was the greatest effects challenge you faced from the Star Trek franchise? And if there was one effect that you could do over again, what would it be? Well,
Oh my God.
I thought
That's
those were sort of related.
The first part of the question was, what was one of the favorites that I worked on, or
what was the greatest effects challenge? So, what did you find difficult about
there was
working on Star
a
Trek?
shot in a, maybe I'm trying to, I think it was The Outcast. I can't remember anywhere. Geordi turned into a lizard. If you remember that thing. And there was a night, as I said earlier, they would put effects last because they knew we were going to take time. And in this thing, there's a shot where Geordi's trying to figure out what happened to some missing room. And so he comes onto the holodeck and he creates this reenactment, essentially, of the scene where they were missing. And we had all the actors frozen in place. And then he would remove them one by one. And the point being is there was a shadow on the wall behind them. And as the shadows of each one of these guys would go away, the shadows would obviously go away. And the idea was at the end, don't know how the physics works with this, but this invisible creature left a shadow. And that's how it led to it. And then he created this monster and stuff. Well, it was a very challenging shot to do. And I had asked the director to meet me at the studio. And I brought a couple of friends with me to go onto the set with the director and say, why don't we just walk through this, get an idea what it's going to be. And it was a complicated show, and he just didn't have time to spend with us to work this thing out. So when the night came on, it was a very long day, and this happened to be on a Friday night, which meant it was Saturday morning by the time we got to this shot. And I remember sitting on a rock, fake rock, on the stage in the dust and dirt and all these black lights going on. And they started setting up the shot, and the director was doing his thing. And I realized that they were setting it up wrong, that it was going to cause me problems later that would be really hard. I remember sitting there and thinking, God, it's 2:00 in the morning, you know. And the first thing was through my mind, how can I fix it? And I said, well, I can fix it. And, you know, obviously money is an object, but it's not going to be as good. And I remember thinking, you know, I didn't spend this entire damn day sitting here so I could let them shoot this wrong. And I got up and said, stop. It isn't going to work. We're going to have to change it. And the people came down on me. Oh my God. People, I remember LeVar coming over and raising his, you mean we got to start setting this up again? I said, yeah. You know, you could just see, you know, this is at least another hour or two that they were going to have to be there. He storms off. The director's like, I don't know what you're doing. The producer comes up to me and he says, I don't know what you're doing, Rob, but one day you're going to have to sit in my office and explain to me what's going on right now. You know, but it's your call. And he walked off. Anyway, I got the director of photography, and we went back and set it up just a little. It wasn't a real big deal, but when you move a camera, that means you're moving all the lights and everything. So anyway, I got the shot set up in a way that was going to work right. And then we were able to go again. One of the first people to come up to me was LeVar. He said, okay, I get it. I was watching. I saw what you were doing, and I saw that, you know. And LeVar's gone on to be quite a good director. But it was things like that you know, he began to see it and he understood. I think most everybody came around to see what I was doing that night, except the director. I don't think he ever forgave me. Yeah. But the shot worked, and
hey, it worked, so that's what matters.
Yeah. And it was challenging, and I absolutely loved that show. It was really good. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see it. I have that.
Oh, you have it. Oh, okay, I see it.
Cool.
That's the LeVar in the suit.
Awesome.
Strange. Don't tell LeVar I have that in my monitor.
Is there like going off like of that question? Is there any like shot that you look back at and say, "Oh, I wish I would have done a little differently"?
Lots.
Like, lots.
Yeah, lots of, and that's one of the things that you have with again with television, that it moves so quickly.
Right.
There was a shot, and I couldn't possibly tell you the episode number, but it had to do with Riker, and I know he was floating and went into this cloud void. Again, I can hardly remember the circumstances, but it was one of the first shows. I'm sorry?
Sorry, I think that sounds like the episode Schisms.
Yeah, it could well be. But it was a time when I was beginning supervising, because a lot of the early shows I worked with Dan as a supervisor. And when I started to do a lot more supervising myself, this was a show where that shot began with Dan doing some stuff. And when it got into post and I started putting it together, I tried to do it as I thought he would. And I remember putting it together, and it was horrible. I mean, I remember calling people into the edit bay at the facility I worked in, and they'd come in, they'd look at the shot, and they'd fall on the floor laughing. And I just like, oh God, you know, that's not what we're after here.
Right.
But it looked like here he is going feet first into a sphincter, and it was just the worst thing. And at that point, then you have to dance. I had to figure out, I got to fix this. You can't start over. You know, this goes to the producers here in a day or so. I got to finish it. And so we did. You know, we get up, we addressed it, and it worked okay. But it was a lesson for me that I can do my work. I can't do his work. Right? We're different people. We have different approaches. Just like the difference between Rob Legato and Dan Curry. They were. I loved them both. They both had fascinating ways to work, but it was. You know, I had to do my way. I couldn't do Rob's way. I couldn't do Dan's way. And sometimes when you're working for them, it can be difficult, right? Because you're in there to give the shot that they want.
Right.
You know, early days, for example, I'd be sitting trying to do a shot that Rob had. You know, well, you know, it's a lot easier when Rob's in the room, you know. But anyway, that's, again, TV moves fast. So yeah, and there's a lot of them. I remember on the movie 2010, there's a shot that to this day, it just, nobody else would ever notice it. Nobody would notice it, but I remember, and again, it's one of those things where after 18 hours of the day, if you leave, you feel guilty. So we're working 20-hour days sometimes. Sleep just isn't an option. But I remember one night working late, and the guy said, look, there'll be a time when you're going to be watching the movies, and you'll see it, and that shot's going to come up, and you're going to think to yourself, if I had only spent another half an hour, it would have been better than that. And there's a shot in 2010, whenever I see it, that hits me, and I'm like, oh, the shot's fine.
Right.
Nobody else would notice it. You know, it's a little tiny thing.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a
right.
So there's turkeys in virtually all of them.
Right. And going off of what you just said, like, is there like what you go back in movies like say Ghostbusters or something, and like does there's like certain shots like bring back fond memories? Like, man, I remember working with my team and like we worked so hard and we finally got that shot right. You know, like are there moments like that, like looking back on your work, like bring back fond memories and not just like, oh, that shot was so awful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you sit down and you take pride,
Right.
you know, back to 2010, I remember a cast and crew screening that we went to after it was all done. Here comes the movie. It's up. It's the first time most of us have seen it completely polished out, done, sound. It's finished, right? And I was sitting in the theater with the cast and crew right behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget this with Arthur C. Clarke. And you know, he wrote this. He wrote 2001. You know, this is one of my favorite writers. He's sitting behind me. And when the Balut sequence came up, it was just heaven to hear him. He was excited to see it and loved it. And, you know, you can't help but that just sticks with you. Yeah.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
I have to go here. One of the first movies I worked with, Kiss Meets the Phantom. Right. And it was, it wasn't the best movie ever made. That's for sure. But I loved working with it. Right. Anyway, went to a cast and crew screening. And at the end of it, Kiss was there. And this was back when Kiss, you didn't see Kiss out of makeup, right? But it was, I know Gene and Paul were there. And I happened to see Gene. And I walked over to Gene and I said, you know, I just wanted to meet you. I worked on the effects on this. And Gene said, with Cher, right? The two of them were together at the time. And Gene comes over and throws his arm around me and says, you're the real star of the show. You know, I was like, those kind of things just,
right.
It's just hard to, you can't plan something like that. It's just cool. Being a Kiss fan anyway. So,
Right.
Anyway, that's far from Trek. Although maybe not. Star Child was a Kiss guy.
Yeah.
So I was recently reading that you were in something called Enterprise Blues Band, so I wondered if you could tell us a bit about that.
Again, I can't quite hear you. What?
I read recently you were in a band called Enterprise Blues Band.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Who was that with? How did that come about? There's some Star Trek cruises. I know that CBS puts one of the big cruises now, but before that, there was a company called Cruise Track, and I used to do a lot of those. And some of the stars that go on, and we go to places all over the world. I owe a lot to these people because you know, they opened up a lot of places to me around the world. But anyway, we were in Hawaii once, and I was with Von Armstrong. And Von Armstrong played more aliens in Star Trek than anybody else. And when we were there, I picked up an ukulele, and I was just twinkling with it. And Von convinced me to go on and play some stuff with him. And, you know, I love to play guitar. I'm no good at it. I have no talent whatsoever. I can copy a few things badly, and I enjoy the hell out of it. But, you know, but he kept at me and up me. So we went out, and I'm a surf music fan. And so we got up, and luckily it was a crowd of very forgiving Trekkies that were, you know, with us on it. But he taught me into coming out and playing with him. I remember getting out my ukulele and playing a version of Dick Dale's Miserlou on this ukulele. And George was there, and they got up, and they were all clapping and stuff. I'm nervous as hell. I've never done anything like that. But anyway, Vaughn continued to talk that. So he put together the blues band. Richard Hurd, who just wonderful, wonderful man who passed recently, has played this gut bucket bass. Steve Rankin, Casey Biggs, also Tom Bill Jones. And we just got together. We had a blast. And we traveled around for a lot. We did
I did a concert with them in London, a few places around here. We didn't play a lot, but we put out a couple of CDs, and there was enough of us then that it was hard for them to bring the whole band over. So now they still play a little bit, but it's basically Casey, Steve, and Fawn Armstrong that do it now. But for me, it was. I mean, we played the Hilton here in Vegas, and I claim to be the first person with absolutely no talent whatsoever to play a venue in Las Vegas where Elvis Presley played.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
With no talent whatsoever, and we played it. I'm proud of that.
Right. I would take that in. I'm like,
Yeah, thank God we had some good good fans.
Awesome.
But it was a real thrill.
Cool. Dan, do you have
Thanks
any
again
other
for. I know it's going to wrap up here. If you got
okay.
questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Ron Moore, for joining us today. It was super awesome to talk to somebody who, worked, with the special effects. It's really awesome to get your perspective.
Thank you for having it.
Yes.
It was a great opportunity for me, and I owe a lot to Star Trek. There's been a lot of good perks. 18 years with them.
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. Please like and subscribe and smash the like button on the Scotch Trekker Show on YouTube.
But not literally.
But not literally.
Yeah.
See you next time when we'll be chatting with Star Trek author Michael John Friedman at 10 a.m. Eastern Time or 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time next Saturday. Check you later. Bye for now.
Check you later.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Whoa. Okay, this is difficult to end this broadcast today. Something.
You're still live.
I know. I can't close it down for some reason. It won't shut down. Oh, right. Got it now. Finally. Okay. Bye, guys. No, still not. It won't shut down. Bye, everyone.